world's biggest ex-Benedict.
I'm so excited.
I don't know what's down here, but I want to know. That's it.
This will be the episode dedicated to those of you who are interested in history or military history, or more specifically, the history of World War II and what is left of it today. There's some really great dedicated people out in Denmark that I want to go visit, and the Great Danish Bunker Tour. That will be this show. While I'm in Denmark, I am taking you to an amazing place. We went up to almost the tip of Denmark, Bangsbo Fort. There's a huge museum here, as you can tell behind me. This is not what you see every day in the streets of LA. This is how they built things back in the day when they were built to last. Let's go meet the museum inspector in here. Great guy, knowledgeable historian. There's a great exposition here on World War II in Denmark. Things you did not know.
My name is Henrik Gyder Nielsen. I'm a curator at the Coastal Museum of Northern Jutland, or Kystmuseet, as it's called in Danish. We're a museum that both works traditionally, works with exhibitions and writing books when we're telling the stories of our area. And we also include the fortress, which is the remains from the Atlantic Wall from the Second World War. And we're very conscious about the way we work when we tell the stories of our area. We both work, as I said, in traditional ways, and we also work on modern platforms and different platforms, and are very aware of that the way we tell the stories has to be different depending on what platform we're working on.
This is just amazing. Let me see what's on there.
My name is Kenneth, and we are standing in the fire control of the coastal fort at Bangsbo Fort. The fort is 70 bunkers built by the Germans during the war, the German Navy, to control the harbor that we have down here. And the fort is built as a coastal battery, an anti-aircraft battery, a radar station, and 3 command stations. So there was about 350 German soldiers here during the war in these 70 bunkers.
And look at this. This is amazing. Look at this. This is where they wrote on the walls direction and distance to where things were. And you have a complete view over what is now a naval harbor down here. Complete ocean. It's absolutely amazing. When you walk down here and watching your head, even though mine is pretty damn hard, you come down here to the command and control, where the commanders will stand and look out over. And you have the metal shutters in case you need to shut up for gunfire. This was put in after the war, of course, because the wind blows. But you look at this. This is authentic. The way it looked, it is just amazing. And you look at the steel doors, and you walk down into the next room, and what you will find down here is absolutely amazing. They have restored this the way it was, with the writing on the wall taken from different bunkers into the phone control, where you have each phone for each of the large cannons. 10.5 centimeter guns?
Yeah, 15.
15? Big ass guns, great, like big guns. Where the crew slept, and again, this was on one bunker. This was inspired by a training he saw in the bunker in the Normandy. This is as authentic as you are going to get. The German occupying force who built these bunkers, the crews, this is what they saw every day for these years of the war. They have done an amazing job. If you are in America, you need to get a passport. That's complicated, I know. Get a passport, go to Denmark, find it on a damn map, come here and see these places. If you have any historical interest, drag your kids here. This is amazing. You cannot miss something like this because you won't find it almost anywhere. Plus, they have the best pastries in the world in this country, worth traveling for on its own. Now, Kenneth told me to press the button on the wall. Being a soldier, I was always taught to not press buttons or pull levers without knowing what happened. I'm kind of gonna, because it's kind of cool. Oh, you gotta love it. The lights come on. Coming down the running trench from one of the bunkers, we're gonna go see something that you are not going to see anywhere short of maybe in France, but not preserved like this. And you look at how they restored this. This is the personnel bunker. This is absolutely amazing. Even the ceiling, they did it all. This is beautiful, beautiful work how they did this. Everything authentic. And in the summer, on the Wednesdays, the reenactors, they move in here, so it becomes a living museum for families to come and see how the Germans, they actually lived and worked on their bunkers. And I have to remind you all, museums like this work only on donations. So support your local museum, come on out to Denmark, come out here and see this, because you just will not see something like this anywhere else. This is amazing. You look at the detail that they have on everything. This is just pristine. Again, as if nobody, just like somebody lived here until last week.
I think it's important to remember and recognize the military reenactors around the world who's keeping various periods of history alive, especially military history, from the Civil War, World War II, even reenactors of the Vietnam War. It is a very, very vital part of remembering history through living history. Out here you have another restored bunkers that are being renovated and cleaned up, and a museum that is being built almost entirely by volunteers. But every year, several times, reenactors come and civilians can come and get a feeling of the uniforms, the weapons, the daily life as it was during the war. And I think we need to respect and support the reenactors around the world. In America, Italy, and France. And from the war movies I've done, I have been so very fortunate to continuously get emails from reenactors around the world inviting me to their reenactments to come film or wants to be in my movies, and that is absolutely what keeps me going. That is why I keep making World War II films, because of the reenactment community. And not those of you in the reenactment community that always complains about things, because never mind. Anyway.
Now you wonder why I'm here looking at this beautiful view. It's really nice. You can see everything from here. And why am I doing that? Because that's why this is one of the few cannons left in the world that is preserved in a German bunker as built back then. This is just amazing. And you know what I'm going to do here? I'm going to come back and I'm going to shoot a movie here. Just because it's here and somebody took great pains to restore it and keep it that way, to preserve history. No way I'm not going in here. I have seen so many bunkers over the years, and there's none where the gun is actually in place. This is just amazing. This is pristine, it is restored. You had the ammo slots, you had everything out here. And the gun, and you come in here, and so what you get to see, this is just amazing. It's amazing that it's here. So the gas-tight metal doors, you go in the back here. These are amazing. This is just, it's unrestored in here, but it's pure. It is the way it would look 75 years after having been left by the Germans. Coming up the back here, presumably to gun port down there for the rear protection. And upstairs, on top of this, there's a Tobruk. You come down here, and you see this. The ammo would come down. Gas-tight doors. You come out here. Business end. 15-centimeter gun. Controlling the whole harbor. It's amazing. We all know that all the bunkers are reinforced concrete, 5 meters underground to support the cannon. And now you're looking and you ask yourselves, because you are asking yourself, why is there a brick here? It's built of bricks? No, it's not built of bricks. This was the finish. First you built the entire casing, and then you finish off things so people can use it, make it user-friendly. But the bricks are just the outside. It is a heavy reinforced concrete bunker through and through. And just for comparison, to show you what the bunkers look like before these great guys started fixing them, let's go down here, where all the mosquitoes and spiders live and love me. But see, this is a pure bunker. You see the difference? This is what it looked like when they got it. And there was a bird, a low bird, through and through. This is just amazing, these huge structures that will always be here. And presumably going up here, this is Tobruk. Closed so people can't fall down, fair enough. But yeah, this is amazing. And now you can truly see the difference of how it looked when they got here compared to when they're done doing their amazing restorations.
Up here at Bangsbo Fort, they did an amazing job. All volunteers, only working on donations, and yet they let us actually film one of our feature films here, which I am dying to show you guys as soon as it gets released. But these people were so friendly and so nice. They all volunteered, they take a bunker, they restore it. Even the bunker art, they restored. It's so worth visiting. Come on up here, and they have annual reenactments where they bring people in, and they set up and go through the motions, just like the Germans did during the war. It's really worth seeing.
Hey, look at this. This is the dome that covered a German anti-aircraft cannon. I think it was a 105 to protect from shells. Eventually, the Navy still occupies the bunkers in here behind me. There's a naval station. Big bunkers in there. Eventually they will move out and be decommissioned. Some of these will be installed in there, so it'll eventually, over the years, become complete. They have, at this moment, approximately 25% of the bunkers restored to what they were. And they're not done yet, so it'll help. Hopefully over the years they'll get it. And this is amazing. It's the job they've done restoring these bunkers is a must-see. Not to mention, how authentic does this look? Steel sentry cage, just for added protection. But this is cool. You look at this, German writing, barbed wire, guard tower. You come down here, and the command bunker, firing slits. Was a Tobruk on top. This is just amazing. And you see what they've done. The colors, the paint schemes are here. The steel doors. And you go through and you see this museum. It is just... Now here they have displays on the walls, so you can actually see and hear the story. And you look at the radio room is amazing too. Look at these original equipment and typewriters. And this is really great. This is something else. And you go through and you come up here. And I'm climbing because I want to come up here and see what's up here. And there's a step missing. Up, down, and up here. For the smaller version of the fire control bunker that you can see out there. Again, on the walls where everything is in what direction. Naval harbor down there. Just a small room. And up here, there's a machine gun, small Tobruk. And we're going down these again. But it really gives you a sense of the operations as they took place during the war. There wasn't any battles that took place here. There were resistance activity. There was a lot of shooting at Allied aircraft that flew overhead. I got the mines the Germans had on display here. Magazine pouches. There you go. Panzerschreck. Handheld anti-tank weapon. RC. And come out through here. And here's the other side of the firing slit. That, if you pull this aside, there you go. Control. See, axis control. You stick your machine gun out through there. The entrance. Climate control probably wasn't here. Your boiler room. Because at winter it gets really, really cold in Denmark. Oh, here you go. Look at this. Here's the whole area. The bunkers and the running trenches throughout everything. The cannons positions. Over here, there's a theater, I was told, that shows little movies that I had to go see. Short movies from and about then, and were reenactments. I gotta go see those. Gotta go see what's in here too, because, well, not much, but I am curious. A lot of little rooms. And you gotta love the paint scheme. Authentic. And up there, another little Tobruk. Presumably. Let's go have a look. Why the hell we're here? Let's go see. Alright, narrow. Yeah, here you go. The Tobruk that's not covered in mosquitoes. Here you go. That's what left the machine gun ring. Now, the grass have grown up over there. Before, that would be a clean field of vision. No more. But since there's no gun up there, I guess we don't need to see that wide. The first tank of World War II the Germans had, the actual tank, was a Panzer I. Very small, two-man machine guns. This is the turret. See how small this actually is. And what they did, they became obsolete quite quickly in the war. You need to upgrade to bigger tanks, better armor, bigger guns. That the Panzer I chassis and turret just couldn't cope with. So they took these off and they planted them in encasements here in Normandy, all around the occupied territories where they needed to defend. They buried down just the turrets, Panzer I, II, IIIs, as defensive positions, sitting on top of concrete placements. Not very well armored, but it was the best solution for a time where the Germans were strapped for weapons, for guns, for cannons. They used everything from every occupied territory they got to because they just couldn't manufacture enough to protect all the territory they had. Walking down here, sign says the Interrogation Bunker. Don't know what that means, but it looks pretty damn big. This would be a personnel bunker. shooting slut, armored door, and somebody who did not play ball. Cool. Alright. And everywhere in all the bunkers that were restored or partially restored, you have history from the occupation, which is absolutely amazingly interesting. They have a bunker showing a little video from how everything worked. Curator, he told me that they were storing things everywhere they could find room in the landscape before they had the time and money to restore them. And here's two more armored domes from the anti-aircraft cannons. And the bottom of one. Just, oh well, okay, it's the same. Just sitting around. It will be amazing to go exploring around here. So today, defense have antennas, listening posts, Navy sitting in here. Speaking of other things sitting around the landscape, here's a ship. What, none of you saw that coming? It's actually not an entire ship. They got the top of one from the Danish Navy training ship, and then they put on different components from other ships for, training seamen before they were brave enough to actually set off to sea, surrounded by water. It's safer. You don't drown when you fall off. Outside the fort here is a Danish-made cannon, made in 1912, and when the Germans arrived, they took it from Copenhagen and brought it out here, along with every bit of artillery, cannons, weaponry they could find in the occupied territories. They brought them to bear where they needed to. And very appropriately, it's sitting here overlooking the ocean. This is a beautiful location, beautiful view. Why the Navy is still set up here. But it's hard to beat. And it's very easy to understand why this was where the Germans decided to set up shop. And when the bombers came, once again, here you are, down to a shelter. Imagine this in the middle of the night. It's a teeny weeny little room. Sitting here with bombs dropping all over you. It's small and tight and cramped. It won't hold a lot of people. But I tell you, if bombs are dropping, you'll sit real close if you have to. But you look at this view. And the sheep. Right, coming down here. See what's in here, I don't know. And here we are on top of the command and control bunker that we were inside. See the heavy door on the rollers. And in here, I'm assuming you had the radar finder. Once again, remember when we went to Fort MacArthur, looked at the little metal plates on top of there. Look at this, how thick this is. This is the outside of the command and control bunker. Tons and tons and tons of reinforced concrete on top, over your head, protecting yourself from all kinds of shelling. It's amazing. Completely unlike what we found at Fort MacArthur. And what a view. I'm expecting anti-aircraft cannon here. Up here the command and control. And here's another bunker. Up here's open. That's interesting. Let's see what we can see in here. Entrance to the Tobruk. And I'm guessing we're going to see a shooting port. It appears to be closed. And it's closed. On average, it took the Germans 3 to 4 months only to build each bunker, which is amazing considering the tons and tons of concrete needed to do such a thing. Today, I doubt we would be able to build similar structures at the time and cost. But of course, when you occupy a country, you get to have some say over how things are done. Here we're getting to another 15mm cannon sitting here. Still got a little bit of color on the casing, but there's 3 of them in place still. Amazing structures. Let's go inside, see what we can see in there. In the meantime, we'll go in, I'll tell you something interesting. There was no toilets in the bunkers. Yes, bad. There's a centralized bathroom, but if the bunker was under siege in some way, well, you expected to do your duty in a bucket. There we go again. Doors, they're all the same. Cannons. Let's come in here. It's presumably rather dark. No, it's not rather dark. Ah, bloody hell, but it is very wet. Alright, so let's try the other way. The underground under the bunker was for spent shell casings. Of course, you couldn't have them rolling around, and you couldn't throw them out over the parapet because, we would see them. This is entirely full of water. There's a ship out there right now, lined up with a cannon. That's why it was built. The Allies were, during the war, very busy with mining every harbor available to the Germans. The harbor's right down here, and the radars here back then were primarily occupied with locating the planes as they came in low. Other than that, of course, it was ship radars in case they ever need to put the big guns to use. Amazing structure, though. As a historian, I love the what the hell is that moment. Seeing something you haven't really seen before as I'm staggering around in sheep dung. I'm looking at this. That's a different design that we've seen around before. Curious of what that is. And of course, on the way, there's this, which may or may not be open. It is open. Oh well, if it's open, we're here. Let's pop down, see what's in there. I'm guessing this could be a guardhouse, or it could be the aforementioned bathroom. Since no bunkers were built with a bathroom, they had to go outside, unless under siege. In which case, well, you had a bucket. I am guessing this was an ammunition bunker, so you could access it from both sides, coming down there. That is what I would think. And sometimes you may wonder why the doors are so small in a lot of these bunkers, the steel doors. Well, generally steel was in high demand and the Germans did not have enough of it. So you make everything smaller. Also a little safer that way. But still amazing structures. This is where a 15 centimeter cannon would have stood out in the open back then. So I am assuming these are ammunition delivery systems. The cannon was here, was eventually removed. Basically the same type of bunkers or fixture as the big cannons we'd already seen. It's very interesting to note that the Germans did not have a plan for how the bunker system would look when complete. Every year they had a certain allocation of cement, of steel and concrete to build, and they would build what was needed and gradually every year increase what they were able to build. There was no plan in place from 1941 on how they were going to develop this fortress. 350 Germans worked here, served here, but it changed. Look, every year they built something new as cement, concrete, steel was allocated to them, and came up with new ways, new improvements. Only on the second year building did they start on their creature comforts like shelter for the staff, kitchen bunkers, cooking, so on and so forth. First of all, it was about the armament, and then gradually it became safer and developed. Don't know what's in here, except a bird. Probably gonna get really pissed off when I get him here to say hi to him. Yep, there he goes. It is another personnel bunker. It's closed, not restored. Look at the coloring on the walls. Exactly as it was, just faded. There's another one over here. landscape dotted with them. And once again, you can't blame them out here over the coast. Where else would you want to spend a war, really? Denmark is slightly wet, so it's a little wet down there, waiting for the summer. Come around, have a look. Of course, all this would be covered in camouflage netting. Sometimes they would line the walls of the bunker with wood to make it a little warmer, a little less echoey. Look at this. Now, all the bunkers, of course, had to have an air supply that was built in such a way that if you dropped a grenade in it, it would slide right out without doing any damage. Sadly, it's locked off. However, I can go climb the barbed wire up here, see what's up here. I'm guessing there's a little Tobruk opening for a machine gun. It could have been a radar, could have been a gun up here. Can't see yet. Alright, what do we got in here? We'd had a machine gun in there. See the landscape, see the view. Interesting to look up what is in here. Main command bunker over there. They had the ability to seal off all the bunkers in case of a gas attack. This device here was for air purification. In case the bunker was ever shut off from the outside, the door sealed. It was recommended that you would crank the handle 16 minutes every hour to get enough clean air in here to keep enough oxygen for everybody to work and live. In here you have a filter, so in case there was gas outside, it will filter everything out and then disperse the air throughout the bunker. Amazing piece of technology for the day. Just on my way out of the fort, had to come up here and show you a phenomenal view. There's anti-aircraft cannon down there, and there were several casemates surrounding this, casemates of anti-aircraft guns. And you see down here in the pits the racks for the ammunition. Now these were put in place after World War II. All have noticed the moment I took my jacket off, it started raining. Just a sign that I'm extra cool or seriously stupid. But we all know that. 3.7 centimeter anti-aircraft, German flak. Very interesting. We were lucky enough for it to traverse. Oh, no. Here's another project for historians to restore this. So we can make it fire, shoot a movie here. Now, down here, I believe you had the ammunition under cover. But again, you had a full view of the landscape and the sky. And here you go, shooting port. Dark in here. It's not dark, dank, gray like a lot of the... And now once again, we're driving into the next... So I'm in Jutland, in Denmark, visiting Hanstholm Bunker Museum, where the biggest guns were placed during World War II. 4,000 Germans occupied this area during the war. It is an amazing place. It is restored back to the way it was, and there's several older bunkers that are not restored that are just as interesting for that very reason. Right here He got one of the big guys. But if you have a history interest, you need to come see this. It is well worth the trip. I'm riding the ammunition train. Just in case you wondered what the noise was. They built the whole museum up as it was, but instead of the grenades, they'll put tourists in the train. We'll get to experience the way of the shells. Just to give you an idea how big this pit really was. You can see the teeny weeny small people down there behind me. They're life size. This gun was bigger than life. We just took the ammo train for a nice run through this bunker. The next one, there's a third one over there. It's amazing, the whole area, 400 bunkers in this tiny area alone. And seriously, like when we were in Aalborg, in the museum there, here again they built the museum on what is actually history. The cannon, the bunker was right in here. This is a whole new addition that they built in order to have things like this on display. Not to mention things like this on display. It's a great place for kids to come and learn. It's beautiful by the sea, and somewhere they will have beer. Funny how searchlights, they all look the same. Remember when we went to Fort MacArthur? Well, this is just great. Nothing like learning history from the place it took place. There was a lot of air battles taking place since for the British and American Air Force to get to German and Peenemünde, they had to fly over Denmark many times, which is where the fighter planes of the German Air Force were stationed. They rebuilt the whole bunker. They restored it. It's now a museum. Back in the day, this is where the ammunition train would come in. So let's go have a look. You know what it's like when you have to clean your gun? You need a ramrod too. Cleaning stick. This is the cleaning stick for a very large cannon. Now we're down in the pit underneath where the giant cannon would be. All the ammunition will be stored in these rooms in here, loaded on little dollies, and then fed up here where the cannon would be. It's just a damn shame it's not here anymore. I can't explain what it's like to be down here. There's an echo. This is how big this pit is. My voice actually resonates off the walls. This is amazing. I couldn't even imagine what it'd be like to have this giant cannon up here fired. It would be heard for miles and then some. On the rails up here would be the back of the cannon for the traversing. And this is where you would store some of the ammunition. Obviously, most of it would be stored off-site, will be brought in here on the little train, stored here until use. And this is the other side of the wall. The cannon is out here. Here's a sample of some of the shells. The training shell is 400 kilograms. The actual shells were 800. That's nearly a ton. Imagine when that thing impacts. And in here was the powder magazine with the enormous casings of the cannons. Of course, you wouldn't store the powder in the same room as the projectile. You don't really want those kind of accidents. So you roll the powder out here, go out there, and everything will be assembled out inside the cannon itself, loading them on the breech in several stages. This is the original ammunition train. They will pull it out once a year, give it a little spin. Still runs 80 years later. Can't tell for the Germans, they build quality. And of course, ever since World War I, everybody prepared for the use of gas. So, all the doors to all the bunkers were gas tight. You'd walk in here, this is put in after, so not in the cold. You have the meeting room in here. It's like a gas lock. You close that, you rinse off, clean the air, and you go through here. Very innovative. Funny thing is going to school in Europe, in Denmark, when I was a kid. You know what, this is kind of what the bathrooms look like in that school. Don't know if I learned anything. And here in the crew quarters, they set it up very nice, full display. I'm saying that the guy there, he's got a little mustache and a little wig, and you gotta give it to the museum people. They do have a sense of humor. Now, I would spend a lot of time going through all the crew quarters and talking about them, but I don't have to because my buddy, History Hunter, he went here before me and he documented very nice. You find him on YouTube, you'll see what I mean. It's actually quite nice down here. It's not dark, dank, gray like a lot of the regular bunkers. They made it livable, and some of them lived down here for quite a while. The shower rooms still needing a little bit of repair, but they're huge. Everything down here is just big, and honestly, they had the creature comforts. They had the heat, kitchen, they had maintenance rooms, they had big showers, everything that you need to live well, and it is huge down here. Here you have the terrain table of the whole area, from a small 10cm guns, 17mm guns, 10 again, to the big 4 cannons. But the whole area as it was back then, this is the terrain table. With the trenches, with barbed wire, with the obstacles, with the lighthouse that is still there. Most of the local population was evacuated or sent to barracks not far. The radar, once again, this is huge. Now, you got to think about it. If all these were running and the crew quarters are right behind here, there had to be some noise, just a little bit. When we went to Fort MacArthur, we were looking at the American bunkers. not really much security for the rare. Even here at this enormous fortress, the Germans were always prepared to defend from the rare. Here's the door, and here, guy with a gun making sure nobody gets in. The ammunition train would pass right through the bunker, unload, go on to the next one, next one, next one. History hunter, you have one of these guys up in Norway. I'm coming up there to see it. Or you better go there with a camera, because if you got one, I want to see that.
It's great to be able to visit a location that looks the way it did during the war, where you can hear the history, you can see and feel the stone, and get a feel and a sense of how it was for those stationed there waiting for the invasion.
And for you to really appreciate World War II history, you have to visit a place like this. It is absolutely amazing to see. And you walk through the nature, not much unlike what it was. You try to find your way, like a good infantryman will. Forgot my compass, but I think I'm going this way. Mortar position down there, bunker over here. It's an amazing environment. And it'll never really do it justice to film it just on camera. To actually visit a historic site in a historic location where these things took place. All these amazing things that were built so many years ago, when things had to be done, you just did them. Whether you're American, British, or German, Russian, you did what you had to do. And you got the job done. Millions of tons of concrete and steel and armor production. You worked hard. It was a sad time because it was a time of war, but there was an energy about it. There was a can-do attitude that we seem to have forgotten today, because back then there was no such thing as, oh, we can't do, working too late, it's too hard, it's too heavy, it's too big, it costs too much. It just had to be done, so it got done. Great generation. Here are the railway tracks for the ammunition train. And we come down here where you actually have the entrance to, I presume, the other cannon bunker. Door better not be closed. Just saying, door better not be closed. There's ventilation. And here's the entrance. As you come down here, we'll see what we'll see. Oh yeah. Here, gun port for intruders. Here you come back down here again, you see the Germans prepared to defend from behind. And I don't have a flashlight. God damn it. Planning on my part, I did not bring a flashlight. It is amazing to go through something that is untouched by history and unrestored. Huge underground complex in the dark, just as if it was abandoned, well, 75 years ago. Here's the second one underneath the unrestored bunker. Still amazing. It's an amazing view you get. These cannons could shoot 55 kilometers out to sea. Nearly a ton projectile. You see why the Germans picked this spot. England's right over there. These amazing structures need to be preserved because we will probably never build any of them again. Here's one of the other entrances to the bunker. Gun port down here in the dark. It's just amazing. You could hear the echo because nothing here, nothing's restored. Got a little bit of light, water on the floor. Just identical to the restored bunker. Steel doors still there. It's amazing. Truly an amazing place. I have to shoot a movie down here. You see these big blocks that are lining the pathway up to the cannon? You may think those blocks were bunkers, but they're not. These were the blocks they built for the crane to lift in the enormous cannon. As a World War II historian who studied the war, that conflict on all sides for most of my life, it has really begun to bother me to see all the regular documentaries about that war, because there's so much factually wrong in them. And by doing my own, I hope I can begin to remedy that for the next generation. Because when you have well-known historians doing documentaries or narrators, and what you get is the little bits of information that is wrong about who did what or why or when, and it is a shame, because do the research, read the archives, go through the source, and find out who did what and why. Try to use the right footage. When you're doing a documentary about the Eastern Front, don't use footage from the Western Front, from France. It's not necessary. There's enough of it, but you have to be willing as a historian, as a filmmaker, as a documentary filmmaker, whether you're doing a feature film or documentary, you have to be willing to do the research and portray history the way it was. Honestly, directly, the good and the bad. Nothing in history is black or white. Like Goethe say, it's green.
Out here by the Western Sea, you had these great cannon positions dug in and built by the Germans, and preparing for the possibility of the invasion by the Allies. Thousands of German soldiers were positioned here, cannons, dugouts, barbed wire, and radar positions. It was an amazing array of technology that was assembled in these small, relatively confined areas. And it's worth seeing.
I gotta show you something amazing. And it's not just all the running trenches that crisscross the landscape still. It's amazing. You go up here on top of this hill and you can see exactly why the Germans picked this spot. It's flat. You can see an enemy from far. See all the curves in the landscape, the bunkers out there, down there, over there. Just one huge defensive position. Running trenches down here. It's like a huge terrain table, life size. Just like when if you're in the military, we have terrain tables. Here it looks like one of them, just this is life size. The trenches, the bunkers, the defensive positions. It's amazing. And it's in the most beautiful nature, in a country that makes the best pastries in the world. How could you not want to visit this? Not everything happened in France. On our way to the 10.5 centimeter bunkers, they were counting 4, pointing that way, sitting up here in the dunes, overlooking the ocean. Simply everywhere. This would have been such a fortified area. No wonder nobody landed here. It's a shame with all the graffiti and all the vandalism. I have no problem being sympathetic with the arts, but this is history of a different kind. It's where the gun would protrude, looking out over the ocean. It's interesting to note, before the Germans even invaded Denmark, they had spies up here disguised as painters looking out, scouting for locations all along the west coast of where they were going to put these after they invaded. They did the same thing in France and Poland. The Germans knew exactly what they were going to do once they got here, or once they got wherever they were going to go. So, well planned out, well executed. Back there, with the bad graffiti, command and control, controlling all the bunkers, sitting here, directing the fire at whatever may get in the way. Oh, well, I can't help myself, it's open. What are you gonna do? You gotta come in. They tried to block it up here with concrete. And here you go, shooting port. Dark in here. Dumbass as I am. Didn't bring a flashlight. Maybe my phone can do it. I don't have a flashlight on my phone, but maybe it'll do it anyway. Well, at least I can see the ground I'm walking on. Just coming through. It's a fairly small bunker. Comparative. Come out here. Here you go. Where the cannon was. And there's an under the bunker as well, which would be very much more interesting if I had a flashlight with me. Hinges of the big armored doors coming through here. And I'm knowing you guys can't see a damn thing of this, but it is super interesting to see how these were laid out, perfectly planned for a reason. And we're back out again. You have a little walkway like this. Obviously, this is where ammunition and things were driven up to the bunkers, hidden by the slopes, covered by camouflage netting, like everything was, but easy access to the bunkers for delivery of everything. A lot of these were self-contained for a while. Something big over there, some little small thing here, and oh, wait, what happened here? Look at this. This whole thing's cracked. I guess they tried to blow it because, believe it or not, these things don't crack on their own. They barely crack when you try to make them. Oh, what a damn shame. Could have been a wonderful wine cellar for me. Let's see what's on top of this. I thought I was behind. No, I'm not. Here's the command bunker. And again, bunkers protecting the rear. The little roads. Denmark would call them German roads. Big or small. Same material laid out everywhere where the Germans went. To have an army, you have to be mobile. So wherever the Germans went, before you build the bunkers, fortifications, you build a road to get there and to keep it supplied easily. So the term German roads been coined, and some of them are still in use today. Testament of the quality. Wish we could say the same thing about the roads in LA. Oh well. Remember when we went to Fort MacArthur? Little shooting ports, low to the ground. This will protect you. And here, the officers would keep an eye out on the ocean. Safe. Certainly from indirect fire. Coming up on top of the bunker, here was a gun. And you can see the back of all the other bunkers, fortifications. The big guns were sitting up here. You can't see them here. Radars throughout. Trenches, still optical, sitting out here. Perfect defensive terrain. The Allies were to land down there, come over this exposed terrain. Down into the bunker, idiot like I am, without a flashlight, shooting port for protection, and into the dark. Not that dark. Alright. Alright. Big space, plenty of room. Come up here where the commanding officers would be, keeping an eye out. See the whole area from here. Perfect. Okay. Metal coming down here, slippery. But, oh, Jesus. When things start to give way, you just start moving. Don't know what gave way in there. When things start drizzling from the ceiling, you just go. But of course, I'm a Harley guy, I'm an idiot. I go climb around old bunkers in Harley boots because that's what men wear. All these little spheres, interlocking fire, defense, underground, for ammo storage. It's amazing to see this. It truly is. Such a big piece of history from back then. And it's still sitting here today. It reminds you and all real historians, really, it's not always enough to read books. It's not. Sometimes you need to go to the place where things happened and see for yourself what was here. Get a feel for how it was used. But for those of you sitting far, far, far away without the possibility of traveling like some of us are right now fortunate enough to do, we'll keep filming this. I know my buddy World War II History Hunter on YouTube does this passionately. Very inspiring. And you can learn a lot from this and get a sense of what history looks like and still have the black tar paint coloring. Of course, everything was camouflaged from the sky. Shooting port again. And here's the wall. And go inside the bunker. Got the dark rooms. Try not to trip. Double doors, double shooting ports. Try to block it up, obviously. Big, enormous hinges for the heavy doors. Are no longer here. After World War II was over, the local population stripped most of the bunkers, cannons, towers of the metals, melted it down for their own use. Of course, during the war, civilians didn't really have access to a lot of metal because that was in use only for the defense, for the military. So it seems only fair the military reclaims all of the metal for the war effort. When the war is over, the civilians dismantle everything and reclaim the metal back to them. However, it is a little sad because it would be so fantastic to still see it in place. No idea what I'm standing in the middle of. I am thinking radar, or maybe a 5-inch gun. This could be gun ports, it could be ammunition storage. This platform does not look heavy enough for a very large cannon, and if it was flak, I'm surprised it would be supplied by all these bunkers. Maybe there's key inside to what it actually was. No, it's just one simple room. I will go to the map, see what I can find, let you all know. See what the big one is over here. And I go get something to eat. Again, shooting port for anybody who approaches from the back. It must be said, and I find this very interesting, that the Danish and the German occupational forces got along remarkably well. Not that there was so much really of a choice, the Germans had all the guns. However, for the most part, they got along very well. They worked together, just like in France. They worked quite well together with the civilian population. Norway, even the Poles to a degree, worked happily with the German occupiers. Everybody got along till after the war, when everybody claimed to no longer have gotten along. Very interesting how opinions change. Alright, little B, you want to come in with me here? Another shooting port. You see how what's left of the rubber here. Heavy doors. Somebody trying to burn something here. It's sad when people, they vandalize these bunkers and installations. But I guess this is the problem, is the young people, they don't have a sense of what this is other than let's have a barbecue. Exactly. And granted, if I was going to go have a barbecue, I was probably going to sit right here too. This is what a heavy gun mount looks like. And I'm really curious to go underneath these bunkers, but not without light. Not that I'm scared of the dark, however. So this is the landscape of a large part of Denmark, France, Norway. Gotta go to Norway. Still have a huge cannons out there. And the next couple of days while I'm here, there's a couple other things I want to go see. And what is this? Then you come to this in the middle of nowhere. This little entrance. I'm guessing it would be a machine gun bunker. So I'm looking for a hole. Here's a hole, there's an impression here. It's overgrown. Standing on a little, what I think probably a little bit bigger than a Tobruk bunker. But it's there. Didn't expect to find it there. Just walk through, stumble over remains from World War II. And that is what all historians should do. Get off your couch, get away from the poorly made documentaries, grab your camera, go out, film it yourself, show it to the rest of the world. Share what you actually see out here. Alright, I'm here at the big bunker at the bridge at Agasund. What makes this interesting is that it was a flak bunker where the Germans put it up because there's a bridge behind me, and on the other side of this bridge there's another bunker. However, they built it this high because the water, as you can see down there, sometimes rises quite high. And the bunker is in fact fairly full of water, but you can still go in there, still open. What the Germans did that was interesting and particularly different about this bunker is they covered it up with brick, regular red brick, like you see down here. So it was disguised as a regular house. So covered up a little bit from the air. There's a crew of 9, had a 20mm flak on top. There's 1,500 mines planted in the fields around here. And again, another one on the other side, because they were waiting for bad drivers. I guess we had them back then as well. They were they're expecting the British to land on northern Jutland, so they wanted the Germans to cover up all the bridges on the way. This is one of the crossings, there's a few more up here. This was built here to secure the crossing on one hand, also shoot down Allied aircraft. It was disguised as a building, was making it really interesting and rather different. You don't see much of that except some of the red brick masonry is covering it up. You can still go inside, but I'm not wearing rubber boots, so we'll take that next time. Here we are on the other side of the bridge, where you can see what the Germans did to really disguise this as if it was a regular red brick building. Because most houses in Denmark, ever for the past hundreds of years, were built in red brick. Here's the bridge right here behind me. And of course somebody has rebuilt this bunker into something a little bit more functional, I guess. Actually put windows in it. That's very different. But it gives you an idea of logs and everything. I guess it's on one hand it's a little bit of a shame that they rebuild these, but on the other hand it's a great way to see how do you live with your World War II bunker. Here we go. And it's interesting because the bunker on the other side of the bridge was built higher up. This one is quite low. So you can see the water is right down here and it rises quite rapidly. And it's full of water. And here you can see the masonry, how the Germans disguised this with the red brick that's so common in Danish buildings. And here the heavy concrete of the actual bunker underneath. So they literally built a little structure on the outside of the bunker to disguise it. And one would think that two identical structures on either side of a bridge may not fool anybody from an aerial photograph. However, the flak gun was up here. They put windows in the bunker. And here on the other side is a second one, which I'm guessing could be command and control, maybe another flak bunker. I'm not entirely sure. Let's see what it says. Another Regelbau bunker. The bridge is over here, first bunker over there, flak bunker here, and here is the ammunition storage, which I'm guessing also had some sort of defense up on top. Yeah, it did. They had a little Tobruk bunker come up from a little Tobruk style bunker port, where you have the metal railing where the machine gun would sit, the roof of the ammunition bunker over here overlooking the bridge, and coming down the stairs again. Not the biggest, tallest guys would have gone through here. I don't know if there's an opening to this bunker. Built in 1944 to store the ammunition for the two flak guns. And I'm surprised because the water is very low. I would be surprised if it's not in one way or another full of water. But I don't know where the actual entrance is. And it might be closed up. This is a very flat-sided bunker with hard edges on the corners. It's very unlike what the Germans usually did. It's high up, it's exposed, it's built in layers, and obviously somebody put a modern door in there, and I guess we're not invited. But again, it was disguised as a regular building, probably the flat roof, because they counted on the disguise and put on a regular roof. I will look for more photos of this.
So we're going to Fyn, on the opposite side of Denmark, where a really cool ex-military dude that I really like. He also sells coffee, by the way. He's taken it almost entirely upon himself to restore this museum, get it built, get it running, get everything in there, host reenactments, and market it. It was an amazing place back in the day when the Germans decided to turn this little area into an airport, station a bunch of people, and build a bunch of bunkers. So come on, have a look, see what he did. Good buddy of mine from the Danish military, Jens. He is now the curator of a World War II museum he's building up. That's exciting. There's some really cool stories in there. But he is also the curator of a Cold War bunker turned into a museum. It was left exactly the way it was at the end of the Cold War. And you got to remember, the Cold War was decades of the possibility of a nuclear holocaust, World War III, tomorrow, around the corner. And some of you guys, especially the young ones, you have no idea how close we got to the brink on several occasions. And when and if ships went down, there's a whole underground structure, bunkers, thousands of them throughout Europe and America and Russia, that was ready to accommodate military, police, law enforcement, civilians, the government, to go hide underground in nuclear bomb shelters and still run the country, still handle emergencies, and still fight the expected onslaught of the Russian military. It is a fascinating step back in time. Nothing has changed here. Even the phones are back from the 70s. You have got to see this, and you've got to show your kids, because your kids will grow up in a world where history education is not as good as the one we had back in the day. You got to see this, you got to learn, you got to teach, because otherwise you're going to have it again.
got some neat details there that I haven't seen anywhere else.
In April 1940, Germany invaded and occupied Denmark, and it wasn't soon after the Germans arrived before they started building and construction of bunkers and airfields.
In den Morgenstunden des 9. April landeten zum Schutze der norwegischen und dänischen Neutralität. Wachsam nähert sich das Schiff im Schutze der Nacht seinem Bestimmungsort. Unbemerkt sind die ersten deutschen Truppen in Kopenhagen gelandet. Wenige Minuten später überfliegen planmäßig Einheiten der deutschen Luftwaffe die Hauptstadt Dänemarks. Sie werfen Flugblätter ab, die die Bevölkerung darüber aufklären. Wenig später ist auch die von deutschen Ingenieuren erbaute Beltbrücke, die bei Mittelfahrt Jütland mit Fünen verbindet, in unserer Hand. In rascher Fahrt geht es von den Bahnstationen zu den in kürzester Zeit ausgebauten Geschützstellungen an der dänischen Küste, die jede feindliche Landung unmöglich machen werden.
In 1943, as the war effort turned against Germany, orders were given to fortify the country further. New airfields and bunkers was to be constructed and built. And in the small town of Beltring on Fyn, the Germans paid off all the local inhabitants to get out so they can build a huge airfield fortified with command bunkers. Let's go have a look and see what's still there today.
One of the things the Germans did whenever they got somewhere is they started building things. They built runways, they built roads, they built buildings, barracks, bunkers everywhere. And a lot of these things, like this, you can't just move it or rebuild it. A lot of the roads were just repaved over the years, but they started as German roads. The Germans built their way through World War II. And here you have at the airport, you've got this big command bunker, and this area was under German control. And the interesting thing is they never really fenced it in with barbed wire. So the resistance sort of could come through. The local train from one end of the Denmark to the other went right through. So they would just jump on the train and go right to the airport, take pictures, do some sabotage, but we'll talk about that more when we get to the museum. And as we're walking into the forest, you just see remnants of World War II everywhere. So I'm guessing this was the defensive area for the next bunker.
Yes.
So every bunker had its little circle of barbed wire and guards.
Yeah.
And this is where that started.
Yeah.
And minefields.
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
Personal minefields, yeah.
I gotta have landmines. And those forests like this in here, or was this in the open air?
It was in the open air. Yeah.
Okay. But these things were built to withstand bombs and shells and...
Yeah. The walls are 3 meters thick, and also the roof. It's thicker than normal. The normal size of a World War II bunker is 2 meters, but here in Beltring it's 3 meters, because they couldn't get it underground. The soil is too moist, so they built them on the ground, and if the war was continuing, they even would have built
slope.
Soil. Yeah, soil.
Okay.
Yeah.
So everything pretty much, it's sitting out in the open, so you can see it from the air.
Yeah.
So we built it because we expect someone's going to bomb it, and they're going to make it. They built them to last.
Yeah.
So all these mounds of dirt around here, is that just built up later, or is that...
Later, I think.
Every time I'm in the forest in Europe, I see a mound of dirt or a hole in the ground. I'm like, bomb crater? Is that a running trench? What is that? What could that have been? Oh, your pipes just burst. All right, that's not interesting. Never mind. We've all seen the World War II films where the GIs, they crawl on top of the bunker and dump in a grenade. Now, the Germans knew this was a possibility, so they built fake ventilation shafts. Some of them are real, some of them are fake. And some of the real ones inside have a little tube so a grenade will roll back out. It was really well thought through. And I always said that the Germans had a plan for exactly wherever they went. When they got there, they had made the plan of what they were going to build, where the guns were going to be pointing. Nothing was left to chance. Here in the main room of the command and control bunker by the airport, there's some really interesting features that you haven't seen a whole lot of places. Jens, let's go talk about this. It's here in one of the main rooms where they had a whole lot of equipment sitting. And what do?
Here they have their communication, wireless and also telephones with the wires, so you can couple up to, for example, Germany or other bunkers here in Denmark. But here, because of all the electronics that was in this room, they had to have some special floor. It was made of asphalt and rubber, because there was so the static electricity was so heavy that the German soldiers get headaches and stuff.
There was so much learning going on with so much new technology that we're looking at today that we just take for granted. That with all the insulation and wires and materials, and we know how it is to live in bunkers. But we know because the Germans sort of figured it out. And also because even in Denmark it gets really, really cold. So you see that when they built the bunkers, they put wood in here. This is one of the few bunkers I've seen where you have the wood built into the bunker walls, where then you insulate the whole thing with wood paneling. And it's nice little details. It's a really cool place. This is pretty much how it looked at that time.
Yeah, and the roof, there was some, what do you call it, sticks or some kind of, wooden sticks to damp the what do you
Moist?
No, the voice.
Oh, the voice, yeah, of course. And there's another thing the wood would do, would keep it from resonating, because it gets loud in here. And everybody was separated, have a little slit there for passing papers into the officers' quarters. You had 2 officers and 1 commanding in here, and have interesting samples of barbed wire from that time. And I can't wait. You guys are going to restore this whole thing, this whole area.
Yeah, for several million kroners. We hope so.
Donations are welcome.
Yeah.
And if you happen to have a spare tank or vehicle or plane, please donate it here, because it's going to have a nice, really nice place to sit. This was an airport during World War II that the Germans started building late 44. They kicked out all the Danish inhabitants and moved in 800 troops. And at the end of the war, a whole lot of planes from Prussia came over and landed here. So you had a whole lot of different planes sitting on the tarmac, all different types, and that must have been an interesting thing to see.
Yeah, and it was destroyed. The British came and, what do you call it, looked at all the planes and took the good ones, the special ones, back to Britain, and destroyed the rest. Here in Denmark there was 1,000 of planes, very good planes we could have used.
Thanks, British allies. And up here you got the periscope that I don't think, I've been digging through bunkers since I was 5. I've never seen a functioning periscope, and here they will have one, and they'll install it when they put it all together. And I want to come and I want to look to that, because that was just, a lot of the bunkers they had in there, they had the periscope sitting so they could sit down here, watch what's going on, and I've never seen one functioning, so I'm looking forward to that. Oh, you gotta love guys and our toys that are loud, but this is where the guys served. And in here, you're gonna have a little machine gun, access control, and he's gonna put another machine gun in here that semi-functions. How many people worked in here?
7 to 9 people. It was a kind of they were workplace, and when they have their 12-hour shift, they get back to Alsø to write to their girlfriends or make their socks or something like that, and a new team came up.
So 8 to 12, is that including the security detail?
No, just in this bunker.
Okay, then they had the guard detail.
Yeah.
But this is, I love it because it's still original of what it was. And you got to love these places. And here again, access control to the main entrance to the bunker. And you come out here and you see the big boy. I keep asking myself why I keep doing this, and I keep forgetting a flashlight because it's not like it's not dark in here. But it's dry, it's clean, it's above the water line, which is cool. And hear the echo. So imagine if you had 12 people working in here and machines and radios going. That's why you want to insulate the walls and the ceilings so the voices don't carry. After all, we've got to keep secrets.
I got another secret out here.
Ah.
The passageway to an underground hangar.
Passageway to underground hangar.
Do you got your scuba dive gear with you?
I will next time. What is underground?
Oh, it's a joke.
Shit. When we talk about how far the Germans were, look at this. That's central heating. That's central heating. This is how you run a war. In the cold, you have central heating, not the little ovens. And this was built in late '44 when resources were scarce. Germans still knew what they were doing, and they built quality to last, and it's still here.
And every year, the museum plays host to a vast variety of living history events. World War II aircraft will land, reenactors will show up with vehicles, tents that bring the weaponry and the uniform of the day so you can get a feel for what it really was like back in the day. You should bring your kids so they can learn what was, so they can tell the next generation all about it. It's a great place, it's a great museum, great events. Come meet some really cool people.
The Germans took the whole place and they took it over for the airport. We have here still a functioning airport, and now they're going to build this into the coolest museum that they possibly can get funding for. We're back to the donation part. And also, if you have a spare tank or an old World War II aircraft, they would love to have it sitting out here. All right, now we're back to the flag thing. Ever since Brothers War, we had joked about the 50-star flag. Here is a real World War II flag with 48 stars. The Germans used this when they buried American airmen shot down. So the Germans actually gave the American airmen a proper ceremony when they were shot down over here, over Denmark, and they used this flag with 48 stars. Now we know to get one, so no more comments about the wrong flag, Professor. One of the things you'll know about Denmark, if you are a fisherman, you really don't want to catch one of these mustard gas bombs that was dumped overboard everywhere in the Danish oceans. My granddad was the head of the shipyard up in Aalborg. Mustard gas bombs, always in the fishing nets. That's what they look like. Where did this thing come from?
It was actually it was going to be carried out to sail to Norwegian for against the invasion, but the little ship it was on, it was carrying about 100 of these empty cases of bombs, aerial bombs, and then the ship was attacked by American day fighters, and the ship was sunk, and those who was floating in towards the land, and a Danish what do you call it, farmer, and took it and put it up in his attic, and several years later the son came and thought, well, this bomb, I have to get it to my place, and he put it in his back of his car and drove to Odense and put it in his garage, and there it stood for many years again, and someday he thought, maybe I got to have a permission for that. And then he called the Danish army and got somehow he was coming through to an answer phone or phone answering machine, and then he said to the machine, "Hello, I have this 250 kilo mustard gas bomb in my in my garage. I just want to know." 10 minutes later, the Danish army called him. "Clear the area, run!" And said, take it easy, I think it's empty." And then the Danish frog team came and with some stuff, the salmon.
Hey, come on, who doesn't want to have a bomb in the garage? In fact, during World War II, chemical weapons were never used in battle, after the horrific memories and effect of their use during World War I. However, chemical weapons were always present, just in case. And in 1943, at the port of Bari in Italy, an unintended release of chemical weapons happened as the SS John Harvey, a U.S. World War II Liberty ship, was bombed by German aircraft. It was secretly carrying mustard gas. Because the Allies wanted to keep it secret, they never disclosed their deadly cargo to any of the firefighters or seamen that was fighting the blaze, thus resulting in horrible injuries and number of deaths. So was this the radio tower for the bunker over here?
No. It's the Odin Tower in Odense. It was Northern Europe's highest tower, built of leftovers from Little Belt Bridge.
Oh!
Yeah.
Oh.
But the German anti-terror corps blew it up.
They blew up their own tower? Oh, was it a Danish tower?
Yeah, Danish tower.
Oh, okay, so they blew it up. Okay, well, that makes perfect sense. So...
This is all the what do we call it?
Airmen?
Yeah, who vanished over Fyn. Flight Lieutenant Pelois was in his short Sterling bomber on a mission to Kiel, I think, and was attacked by night fighters and shot down near Middelfart. That's a funny name, but that's the name of it, Middelfart, and was crashed. 7 of his crew members was killed, and also Pelois, and we got his cross.
Yeah. Got to remember the thing about wars. People, they die.
Yeah.
This whole clean, nice, non-lethal munition type of war, you're not going to win a war that way.
German propaganda radio. Goebbels thought that propaganda was the better way to inform people about the Nationalist Party and their philosophy, sick philosophy. They produced 3 million of these kinds of small radios, and so people could listen to music and also Nazi propaganda. It's called a Goebbels-Schnauze. And there's a little, if you look at the scala, you can only receive German stations.
No BBC?
No. There was a note here saying, if you're listening to BBC, you get punished and your health is not good.
And that was the thing. Everybody listened to the BBC, both for the news and for the music, secretly hiding in their attic, sitting somewhere down low. And I remember all the stories from Europe. Everybody was sort of trying to get it, mostly for the music.
Yeah.
This was instant news and instant information. The old teletyper, the telefax, came the fax machine. This is how you would tweet back in the day. If you're 19, you don't get it. I get it. This is how you would have a typical little home, typical little resistance home, where part of the resistance was spreading information and propaganda to the other side, and had little prints. And obviously, if you were caught in your house with one of these things, you would have a very bad time. And this is fun for me, because my granddad, after the war, built a little summer house and had one of these, and one of these, and one of these, and one of those sitting in the summer house. And even a rack with different plates. I recognize a lot of these things from when I grew up. which is actually kind of freaky, but kind of cool. All right, guys, here. Don't know how we got to talk about toilet paper back in the day, which was invented, I think it was first reference was year 385. Toilet paper, back in the day. I'm not that old, but I remember when school I went to had this shiny on one side and sandpaper on the other side. So you actually sit and the World War II toilet paper. You were lucky when you had it. In the 80s, when you had it, you didn't feel so lucky. If you still see it today, you're just shit out of luck. And during the war, pretty much everywhere that was occupied or there was fighting, there was rationing of all different sorts of things. Rubber and foods and sugar and leather. And so you started improvising. These shoes are actually made from fish, from one of the flatfish that we have so many of out here. It's hard to ration fish when you have a whole sea full of them. But this is interesting. I've never seen shoes made of not even scale. Flatfish don't have scale. They have skin, like thick skin, like a snake. This is interesting. This is really cool. You really get to improvise through hard times. And I can only recommend, at some point in time when you raise your kids, give them a couple of weeks of hard times where they learn how to improvise and take the phone away and see how you do without Twitter. Now, I went to school out here in Denmark during the very latter stages of the Cold War. And it's one of those things that's really remote for you teenagers today, especially in America. Everything's so far away, you don't care about history. But back then, every Wednesday, you tested the air raid or the emergency sirens, which looked like this. And I got to tell you, I'm gonna crack it up for you. Every Wednesday, this is kind of what we were listening to. You're not here, but this is really loud. All over Denmark, every Wednesday, 12 o'clock, these were tested for a minute. Set your watch by it, and we did. Just a reminder that shit could happen and you needed to be prepared for it. And I gotta tell you, with the recruits we have today, you whine about shit being heavy. You take one of these things and you take that into battle with all the ammo, what they would carry back in the day. I will not hear you whining about things being too heavy. So Jens, what are we looking at here?
Some stuff that was dropped down from the British under the occupation, of course. It's for the Danish, what do you call it?
Resistance?
Yeah. U.S. carabine, Sten guns, Bren guns, and old American rifles.
And they would drop these canisters with weapons and explosives, radios.
Yeah. Ammunition, so forth. This, what do you call it?
Burning fuses.
It's still functioning. It can burn underwater and, it still works.
All over occupied Europe, the Allies would drop everything from single-shot revolvers to all the weapons, all the different resistance groups, and they would go wreak some havoc on the Germans and blow things up and do some assassinations and all those nasty things. And there's a really interesting story that we're going to go to. It's telling me about the Priest resistance fighter. Got to go hear that story. The Priest, also referred to as the Dynamite Priest. His little group blew this thing up with one of the trolley cars that was used out here by the airport. Local Pastor Peterson, he got a little group together and started blowing up German armaments and trains and rails and whatever he did. And there's a movie in that. There just has to be. Now, during the Cold War, just like World War II,
they built bunkers for the civilian population in every city. Every major city, every big town had bunkers during the war, during the Cold War. But now we are literally in the middle of nowhere. It's a very small town. How many people live here?
50.
50 people. There's a civilian bunker they built out here in the middle of nowhere for the Cold War. That's sitting right here. And we don't really know why. Do we know why? Any idea? And it's not a post-World War II German build?
No, it's Danish standard.
They built this Danish standard for the Cold War, literally in the middle of nowhere for the civilian population. And we don't know why, and that's very interesting. And it's open, which is more interesting. So now we are looking for your flashlight.
There's some interesting thing here because the bunker was anti-gas protected. They had a device inside they could turn around, so they suck air from the outside into the bunker, and it was ventilated through a big sand filter. Look.
Oh, yeah.
The air get through and was cleaned. They hoped.
Yeah. So do we know what year this was built?
In the 50s.
In the 50s. That's interesting. I mean, the Cold War was just really heating up. And you see this round building. It's not very big. You could maybe uncomfortably sit 40 people in here. 50.
On benches.
I was guessing on the 40.
This is the emergency exit.
And you're kind of looking at this bunker with a hole in the roof. This was not like a military bunker that was expecting impact on top of it. This was a bunker that would withstand a blast somewhere on the side. And it was a dome, which is always stronger, as we know. It arches.
A deeper kit could not withstand. It would collapse.
Yeah.
But this is an overpressure valve.
Yeah. This is interesting. More to the story of why this thing is here. And these were built all over the landscape during the Cold War
in
the big cities. Not out here, in the middle of small town, 50 people. The story will continue when we figure it out, if we do.
It was not long after the end of the horrible fighting in World War II before the former Allies turned on one another, when it became apparent that Stalin's Russia had no intention of giving up any of the claims to territory they achieved during World War II. And soon, a Cold War became apparent. A war that, of all cost, could not turn hot after the invention of nuclear weapons. So it resulted in a whole lot of small proxy wars fought by the former Allies all around the world. However, in the middle of all this, there was spying, intrigue, and always the possibility of the Cold War turning hot. Because on every tarmac in East and West, the bombers were ready, loaded with nuclear bombs, just for the word to go and destroy the other side. In the middle of this, there was all the small European countries that fortified bunkers underground in order to cope with the possibility of a nuclear conflict or a Russian invasion, or the very real threat that the Cold War would turn very, very hot right on top of them. In Denmark, there's 125 of those small command centers ready to cope with a Russian invasion or a nuclear war. Let's go visit one of them. It's a fascinating snapshot of history.
In the middle of a small Danish town, little houses, been there for a while, and over here is the school, and under the school is a big Cold War bunker. Now, during the Cold War, it was expensive back then to build these big installations that were under every major city. There was a command center, something that was a remnant of how the Germans had warning command centers during the war. It was adapted for the Cold War because it worked.
And of course, if you have to build a huge underground bunker, build it under something you're already going to build, like a school or hospital, that's also prone to maybe not be the first thing on a bombing run. See this? That doesn't belong for a school. See the antennas up here? Most schools don't have those. And now you got a little hole in the ground. Most schools don't have these. These were built in preparation for if the Cold War went hot. Manned by 20 people in times of crisis, actually 40, but 20 active. Nuclear-free zone in Danish. And you see, this is a bit newer in the construction than what we're used to seeing in the World War II German bunkers. And these are roughly put in every major city or a city we have an industry that was important, or bridge, connection, something where you needed to be able to command and control crisis, invasion, or literally waiting for the Russians to come. This is a remnant of the Cold War. There's 125 of these waiting for the day that the Russians might come. And this is where the battle would be guided from, or the disaster as...
the civil defense force.
Some of the things that was operational all the way through the Cold War was a direct lineage from some of the things that Germans developed in their bunker warfare. Not quite as thick, not expected a direct impact. However, this would survive a Hiroshima-sized nuclear device within 400 meters from here. And of course, under pressure, people are supposed to live here for 30 days. That's the thickness of the wall.
Yeah, and also heat.
So you have this is the outside, and now you're coming, this is the airlock, and then the actual inside bunkers are in here.
In case the city net went down, this could provide power and electricity for the bunkers function, radios, heating, food, and everything.
And it was almost expected that this was in time of war, so things would stop working. That we were expecting the Russians to bomb and land. Maybe nuclear bombs would go off. You'd be hiding here. You command and control. So obviously you'd have your own power station, your own water for a while.
There was fuel for 30 days, water storage for 1,200 liters for 40 people in 30 days. Not much.
Not much. No showers.
No showers.
Have a look and see what we get. And here's the double doors. You can actually feel the airlock. And this whole thing, and you come in here, this is nicer and cleaner than the German bunkers we're used to seeing. But this is cool. You come in here, you can hear the air. What you're trying to do is generate pressure inside the bunker to keep air out, keep dirty air out, nuclear air, in case you had a chemical attack. If there was a blast outside, you'd have these, would alleviate the pressure and then shut. You'd have enough diesel to run the generator for 30 days. And this, we've seen enough German bunkers. This you recognize, you know exactly what this is with a hand crank in case you have to clean the air. You know, supplies, you have to have supplies. 30 days. I don't know how much concentrated tomato soup you can eat for 30 days. This is how it was. Supply, and in here, signal communications with all the equipment that was present during the Cold War. From the typewriters to the teletext to the computer of the day. And this is really interesting. Here's a map over Denmark, divided in the regions, 7 regions, a little island out there. And if there was an overflight, disaster, there was something to report, there was a police officer that would sit here and operate, and he would light up the different sections as a plane would go over, call it on, call it off. Signals to the people in the second room. This one? Yeah. This was the signal to the guys in the next room that a change was made or deleted from the map. Because underneath every one of these stations, there was a Danish national radio station, transmitter. They had their own bunker. underground, so they could keep transmitting. So you had an actual radio that would transmit news as much as they could for as long as they could. And hiding behind the radio, see the little box back there? That was the secret. You know when your high-tech radio in your new car stops playing music and you get a alert of an accident or something? That little thing that does that. They had that back then, and now we're looking back at the 60s. And you had the old teletext, get messages coming to and from that would be communicated around. I'm back in the day. With the little hole punch cards. This is the next step of what you had seen during World War II. You'd have volunteers would be sitting here taking calls from the population at large, the city outside, calling in, and all this would be coordinated. And all these rooms are exactly identical to the other 125 command and control bunkers throughout the entire country. And you can actually hear the pressure. So nothing from the outside comes in. Map of the area. You come in here. This is where staffs of the government would sit. You have the police would sit here. You probably have some from the mayor's office. You have some from the hospital, the National Guard, the operational section. You had this is the brain of the area. And on the other side, here's the map. That's mirrored on the other side, same as with the radio. So this is the situation room. And we come down here. This is so hardcore, low tech, and you sit to go like, well, we used to looking at videos from NORAD and all the big computer screens. When NORAD goes down to an EMP and your cell phone stops working and all that crap doesn't work, when shit happens, this will work. This communication will still work. This will still work today if we really had to. This is how you'd signal. Here you had your squad cars. There's a unit, got called in. You'd move you'd take the sign, and you move him over here, and you're right where he went. When he's done, he would radio in here on the road, on the way home, and finally back here, he's back home. This is how you kept track of where your squad cars were, or the civil defense forces. Overhead projector. Most of you kids today don't know what an overhead projector is. You may have seen a blackboard. And if back here, you wouldn't have a Wikipedia or Google if you needed some information. You'd go to the books. This is the Wikipedia of the day. And you'd look up if you needed some information. In here, you're supposed to be hot bunking. They would have beds in here. The emergency exit, just like the World War II bunkers. All the Germans made a little exit. This is a little more comfortable, filled with sand. So if shit happened and you had to get out that way, you would dig your way out. You got the sounds of war going on out there. You would occupy this and be operational if the Russians crossed the border, started the overflights. In the 50s, they were actually activating the bunker down here. Is that correct? Yeah. And anticipate after the Russians went in Eastern Europe. So you had people sitting down here. What about during the Cuban Missile Crisis?
I don't know. I think they went to a higher alert state.
It's scary to think that in 1952, only 7 years after the World War II, barely during the Korean War, we were so sure that the Cold War with the Russians was going to turn hot. 1952, we were printing ration stamps, preparing to have to hand them out. They're sitting in a bunker up here. We are on Fyn. But in 1982, during the NATO exercise called Able Archer, so much communication had gone on with NATO. And remember, everybody was spying on everybody. Had Russian spies everywhere, had American spies everywhere. Everyone was spying on everybody. The Russians were so sure, because of this massive NATO exercise here in Europe, that we were actually preparing to launch an attack. The Russians actually had their planes loaded with fuel and nuclear weapons ready on the tarmac. They had guys watching the launch sites just to see if we went hot. That's how sure they were that we were going to actually attack. And that kind of scared us so much that the ration stamps, instead of sitting in one bunker, they were actually distributed, choose different ones so they wouldn't all get destroyed at the same. There's a lot of instances in history where the Cold War was really on the brink, and you've never heard about it. That's the interesting thing about history. There's a lot of things you haven't been told, or you don't know, or you have to dig through places like this to learn. And you need to. And you need to bring your kids here because they need to know exactly what we came from and what could have happened. Speaking of, go to YouTube. Check out the Norwegian Incident. Speaking of times where the Cold War almost went south. Look, this is so rudimentary, but it will work. And it will work if we ever need it to again. Nothing more, and there you get a little bit of sample of Russian uniforms, because Russia was the hardcore enemy of the day, and a bomb-proof toilet. Nuclear safe. Because you had a little canteen, you have to eat. You had diesel, you had food, you had air, you had water, just no long showers, that you could sustain life and operate. And the Russians were so prepared that you go through Eastern Europe, you go to old East Germany, you go to Poland, you'd, on the basis when the wall came down, you'd find street signs in preparation of the Russian invasion of Europe that they were going to advance and pluck the street signs and change the names of all the streets so they could find their way around. And they had invasion plans, nuclear plans. They knew exactly what they were going to do, where they were going to go, and we did what we could to prevent that. The Cold War was a very strange time that I think most teenagers today, they don't really understand. So what Jens is going to do is turn this into a active museum. Yeah. We can bring school classes in here and show them what it was and listen and learn.
Like put them in the scenario where some of the pupils are the mayor and the policeman and some from the home guard and so forth, and then they have to run through a scenario of crisis and war.
We're not that old, but we still remember the tail end of that history of knowing that shit could happen. And if you learn these ways of communication, if it's the old teletext or the old the rotary phone or the old radios, if you can survive with Morse code and you can live off the land, so to speak, and communicate and command and control with a map and a compass, then you have a chance, because we are so dependent on electronics today. All it takes is a little EMP and you got no electronics, you got no cell phone, you got nothing. And I was scared when I saw some of the recruits in basic training didn't even learn map and compass because they had a GPS. Remember, electronics will fail you when you absolutely need them. And then you're moving back down here, and then you have to know how to learn and survive on the basic skills of having to break out if the walls crumble around you. We had guys down by the water with these to measure the wind distance, the direction, so they could report how strong the wind was, what direction it was going, in case there was a nuclear cloud coming from, say, the main island, Sjælland, that had been a nuclear explosion, see if it was drifting this way or the other way. And I remember vaguely during the incident at Chernobyl, when the Soviet nuclear reactor went sideways, and we started measuring these increased levels of radioactivity here. And one of the things we were issued in the Army back then was the trace paper that you had to put on you so you could see if you were near radiation and I believe chemical as well. And this little thing was for the small civilian shelters to create pressure to keep the dirty air out. You would connect this to a hose like the shelter we went to would have one of these sitting there, so you could manually generate pressure inside and keep the dirty air out. This was really, really interesting. And to think that for all those decades, people were ready to hide underground all over Europe, waiting for the Russians. And now we're looking at provocations out of the Eastern Sea. The Russians are pushing a little bit. So, never know what the future may bring. But you have to learn from history. There's a lot of lessons to be learned and a lot of history. So Good luck. Read a book. Alright, that's it for Denmark for this time. Now, I am starting to plan a nice trip around Poland, Germany, Austria, Czechoslovakia, at some dedicated World War II locations that I'm really looking forward to bringing to you. There's a part of the World War II history that you may not know, even mainstream historians. There's a lot of that war you haven't been told, and a lot of it is still there, just hiding underground or a little bit out of view. I want to take you guys through some trips there and show you what you don't know so you can tell your children or just force them to watch my videos. Yeah. Now I've got to remind you of something. One thing is, yes, I'm a card-carrying historian, but I also spend a lot of time in the military. I'm still in, and one thing I don't like locks on history. My intention is to break down every barrier I can because I want to see what's behind the locked doors. I want to find what's in the archives that they haven't told you. I want the truth behind history. Guys, I hope you enjoyed some of my shows, my movies I put up. Please subscribe to my channel, hit me a like, donate if you feel like it, and if you have any suggestions of things you'd like me to go, see, do, film, talk about, drop me a note down below and I will follow up as soon as I can and do whatever I can to keep you guys entertained. Have a great day.